once I have an idea, out comes the pen and the squared paper, and I start drawing. Um, I have set base sizes I work to. The biggest is this is 200mm square, which is about the biggest I'll do, unless it's something particularly big. But a basic building will fit on a 150 by 100 base, so I know roughly where the size is before I start. And then all I do is I do this various sketches for positioning of windows and such like, so the proportions look good. And the proportions looking good is far more important than it actually resembling what it started off to resemble. So if I have to lose some, for the airport I had to shorten the building because I didn't need a huge long one. I just needed enough space to fit a certain number of soldiers on it, so it became shorter. Still looks like what it's meant to be. So yeah, so I draw and I draw and I draw and I draw and I draw it quite a lot. It's very rare it comes right first time. And then from there I work out a cutting plan just like a professional would, and then out comes the cork tile and off we go. Most of them follow the same pattern. This is very simple. This is 4 walls with some windows cut into it and some doors. The doors are all the same size. They're all 30mm tall by 20mm wide. Windows follow a variety of sizes, so I knew what they had to be, and then off we went really. This one I saw, this was one I saw on eBay. Factory, always good to have a factory, you can use it for everything. So I remember finishing the plans off at after school one day at work, and a couple of hours after I got home it was made and built and finished. It's a very, very simple thing. The cork is 3mm cork tile, cut out with a scalpel or a Stanley knife. Very quick to use, glues with super glue. There you are. How hard can it be to stick 4 bits of cork together, really? I try and have one focal building which will be bigger or more elaborate than the standard ones. There's a little sort of African set at the back here. There's a 2-story building which is the focal one. Then I've got 3 medium-sized ones and 1 half-size one. Pretty much what I do. 1 focal one, 2 or 3 mediums and 2 or 3 little ones, and that gives you enough to represent what it's meant to be on a tabletop. Unless I need to do something like a city, where obviously I have more of each, and I work out more variations. But they're all variations on the same box with windows. Some are 2 stories, some are 1 story, and a couple have awnings. There's no actual. They're pretty much interchangeable. But for yes, if it's not the main setting, I did a little Vietnam town. So obviously most of the Vietnam games will be in a jungle, but you might want a clearing with a village, so it's got 5 buildings. There's a big one, 2 mediums, 2 small ones, and that's enough to be able to show what it's meant to be, pretty much. Especially if there isn't a particular number of or type of building you want to include. I'm going to do some English buildings at some point for a Dad's Army game, in fact. So once I've done enough little shops to have Jones's Butcher and the Undertaker and Hodges Vegetables, whatever it is, then there's got to be the bank, there's got to be a pub, got to be a novelty rock emporium, I think. After that, that's pretty much it. But just that won't be enough because it won't look much like a village, so I'll have to do other buildings. But generally I get away with as little as I can possibly manage, because there comes a point where the initial enthusiasm has worn off, and doing too many is then counterproductive because it's not enjoyable anymore. It then becomes a chore, and it's not meant to be a chore, it's meant to be a hobby, and you know, so I generally find 5 or 6 is about it. I don't usually do actual buildings because suddenly you're kind of steered in a direction that I might not want to go, because wherever possible I'll take the easy option. and doing an actual building means you have to recreate stuff that perhaps you'd rather not, because it's tricky to make. So so I found some pictures of Entebbe. They're few and far between, actually, but I found two good pictures. I found a picture of the model that the Israeli Special Forces had built to plan their raid, which of course was a very quick model, and so it had the elements that stood out rather than all the superficial stuff around outside. And I found a really good blurry rubbish photo that let me have just the again, the pertinent things that made it Entebbe stood out, and the bits that there are some nasty horrible umbrella things on the roofs which I didn't want to do, and luckily they didn't show up in the crappy photo, so I could leave them out because it still looked like Entebbe without them. And then I took a reference point, that because there's no sizes on these things, but I figure a door's a door, so that's what I usually start with. So if their doors are so big on the picture, my doors are 30mm, that's what it's going to be, and I scale it up from there. And then I found that it was about 7 foot long. Well, I don't have 7 foot, so that was out. So it got cut back, and the I cut down the terminal building, and I took out some of the detail, and eventually I ended up with a set of drawings that looked like what I showed them to someone, and he knew what it was without me writing underneath it. It's Entebbe Airport, so I figure that's good enough. If he can recognise it, then that's good. And so off I went, and again, basic boxes cutting out. The control tower was quite a problem. Held me up for quite a while figuring out how to do the windows and stuff, but I've only got certain materials I can work with, so it has to be done with them or not done at all, and it has to be done or it wouldn't get built. So eventually I got there. It's, and the very last thing was the control tower bit on top, which I finally made by cutting up a plastic beer glass, which I thought was quite a novel way of doing it, because I had all kinds of fragile arrangements with struts and bits of matchstick, but it's got to stand up to gaming. Nobody takes much care of these when they're moving their figures about, because when people are playing on it, all they want to do is get where they're going, so it all has to be fairly robust. Well, the idea is it has to be fairly robust, and then we get to the idea that actually perhaps I might never game with it, but it's still working towards the idea that it will be gamed with, and that's the whole point of doing the damn stuff in the first place. So that's how Entebbe. It took me about 5 days to build. Once I cracked how to do the control tower, which was holding me up, then it took about 5 days, because they are just boxes stuck together and painted with household emulsion, cheap stuff. Don't use model paints because they're £2 for 20mm, and so I used Dulux. There's a nice place in Woking that will mix up any colours you want, so I took down some of the model paints I use and got him to, make batches of emulsion for me. They go on with a very big brush. That's it, really.